Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This one we're going to go over some of my favorite plays for the 4-game NBA slate for tonight on Draftkings. Before we continue though, if you guys could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out, really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And for us in the spreadsheet, I built every single night for the NBA season. I updated all the way up until lock because we all know the slate changes at a blink of an eye. With guys like Andrew Wiggins being out, it just changes the whole slate at once. I do all my updates, so you get all my updated plays and projections in my cheat sheet, in my Slack chat. So again, links below in the description below for my Patreon. And if you haven't checked out the NFL videos, you probably have like an hour and a half to check them out if you haven't already. So I'd recommend checking those out. And let's get right into the video. So just from a general slate point of view, this is definitely a stars and scrubs kind of night, and it's very, very easy to do so. You're not going to be hard pressed to find value because there is a boatload of value on this slate. The entire Pelicans roster is pretty much injured, and Golden State lost D'Angelo Russell, so we have a lot of value plays. But let's talk about the studs first. So my top spend above the slate, just in terms of highest projected player, it's going to be LeBron at 10,700, and he's by far the most expensive guy on the slate by about 1,100, or actually not about exactly 1,100, but I think it's deservedly so, and it's really easy to fit the guy in. So if you want to, you should have no problem just jamming him in. He's pretty much a guaranteed double-double with all the assists he's been getting every single night, and he's actually averaging 24 points per game and 11 assists per game. And we all know the guy's triple-double upside as well. We've seen him do it multiple times this season. And what was this? He had like a 3-game stretch versus Chicago, San Antonio, and Dallas, where we all know his insane upside. Now he's been a little hit or miss. We've seen games in the 30s and 40s, but typically I'd expect over 50 points from him in the mid 50s with upside of 60. And he's averaging nearly 8 rebounds per game. So like I said, he's near a triple-double every single game. Like I said, 24 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds. So he's pretty much right there. So we got the upside there. We can get the bonus of the triple-double and the double-double. He also has an insane 51% assist rate this season, which just goes to show you how much he's taking on his role as a distributor this season. He's got a 30.7% usage rate, which is slightly ahead of Anthony Davis, and he leads the slate in points per minute on DraftKings with 1.53 points per minute. He's getting about 35 minutes per game. And it's also a good matchup versus Atlanta, who's giving up the third most points per game collectively as a unit for fantasy. So LeBron, I think he's an excellent option, and if you want to build around him, it's pretty easy to do so, and I think it's probably a good way to go. So I like LeBron quite a bit. So I think Bradley Beal's a little expensive there for a matchup versus Orlando. Trae Young, I just don't really play Trae Young much, and it's a tough matchup versus LA. But Anthony Davis, he's questionable, but he should be good to go. But I like him quite a bit too, and it's looking like I might just pay up for both these two Lakers studs here. And we'll see. I think I'm going to get one, but I think two is definitely a viable way to go. And he had quite the price drop here. He's all the way down to 9,200 compared to his usual 10K salary, which is just way too cheap for someone like him. I know he had a really bad game last time out, only had 34 fantasy points, but we don't need him to hit 60 points or anything. I'll feel good if he gets us in the mid 50s with 9,200 price tag. So I think Anthony Davis is a pretty good play here. And generally, he's in the 50-point range, and we know he's got plenty of upside as well. Anytime he's on the court, like we saw versus Memphis when he dropped, 79 points or something like that in 3 quarters. Also, like I said, for LeBron, Atlanta doesn't pose much of a defensive threat here, and Davis should be able to have his way down low. His usage is pretty similar to LeBron's as well, as it sits around 30%, and he's been around 1.42 points per minute, which isn't quite on LeBron's level, but LeBron is a little bit inflated from that 92-point outing that he had versus Dallas, but still, obviously LeBron's been great, and Anthony Davis, he should have a good game here. I know he's got the shoulder issue, but he should be good to go. I believe he's probable, so he's going to play, and he's going to see his 35-plus minutes, so Anthony Davis, I like him quite a bit at 9,200. That's just way too cheap for someone with his kind of upside. Nikola Jokic right below him at 8,700. Not a core play for me, but and I gotta say, he has not looked great this year, and he's really only had 2 good ceiling games. He dropped 57 versus Philly, and then he had that 66-point game versus Phoenix earlier in the year. I actually played him that game. And I played him last time too versus Brooklyn, and it was just very disappointing. He was cheap, but still, I expect more than 37 points out of him in that game. So. But other than those 2 good games, he's really just been in the not the low 30s, but the 30s and the low 40s, really. He's not been that great, but this is a really good spot versus Memphis. I know it was a good spot versus Brooklyn last time out too, but it's a good spot versus Memphis here. And they're worse versus guards than they are versus big men, but they're not that great versus big men either. And it's a big boost for the Nuggets here that they are going to be in a big pace-up spot, because they are currently playing the absolute slowest this season in terms of pace of play, and Memphis is playing the 7th fastest, so it's going to be a boost for our Nuggets and Jokic. And he doesn't get the huge minutes like some of the studs do, but he's averaging a little over 30 minutes per game, which is, and he's also at 1.3 points per minute, which equates to about 40 points per game. It's a good matchup, and the pace should be pushed. So Nikola Jokic, I think he's an interesting tournament option. Not sure if I'm going to play him in cash games because I'd rather play like Anthony Davis or the guy I'm about to talk about in Vucevic, but I think he's a fine option and might go a little bit lower owned than most of these guys on the slate. But I do think he's fine. It's just he's not looked great this season. Kind of out of shape. Or I guess I'm going to talk about Vucevic after Drew Holiday. But Drew Holiday, 8,400, I like him quite a bit here. Now we're going to have to wait on some injury news, but this game is going to be great for fantasy because there's a million injuries, and both teams are bottom 4 in defense this season, and we know New Orleans plays blazing fast, and Golden State plays pretty fast too. I think they're 13, so it's like they're a slow team by any means. And so here's the thing with Drew. The entire Pelicans roster is hurt right now. Frank Jackson's injured. He left the game yesterday. Derek Favors is injured. He left the game yesterday. Brandon Ingram has missed the past 2 games. Okafor is injured. Redick is injured. Lonzo is injured. And Hart is injured as well. And obviously there's no Zion. So my goodness, are they battered up. They're going to have to get some guys out of the stands to fill out their bench pretty soon here at this rate. But now, most of these guys are just pretty much questionable, so we'll see if they play or not. But as of right now, Drew seems like an obvious choice tonight, given all this. We recently saw him drop 63 points versus the Clippers, and I think he has that same kind of upside again tonight, as he will be the main ball handler here, and pretty much have the entire offense to himself. Golden State is just so bad on defense, defensively, is actually allowing the most fantasy points per game as a team. It are 28th versus point guards and 23rd versus shooting guards. Also, this game has a 227 over/under, which is the highest on the slate, and we have a close spread. So Drew Holiday, I think he makes a ton of sense here. I think he can get you over 50 fantasy points as long as he's the only guy on the court. Brandon Ingram plays, it'll hurt him a little bit. And, if Lonzo plays, it'll hurt him a little bit too. But as of right now, if we just assume they are out, or if they don't play, same thing. Drew Holiday, I think he's an excellent play at 8,400. I'd make him a core piece of my lineups. Then Nikola Vucevic at 8,200. I think he's a fantastic option. I do like him over Jokic as of right now because he's in an extremely good spot. And I gotta say though, I've not played the guy yet this season because I just typically don't target Orlando guys. Although I did play Aminu the other night, but I just like getting guys in pace-up spots here. And the Wizards are playing the 6th fastest, and the Magic are 2nd to last. So going to be a huge pace-up spot here for the Orlando Magic. And it's also an incredible matchup versus the Wizards, who are tied for dead last in points given up to centers this season with Golden State. So I love the matchup. And he should be able to smash his price tag at only 8,200 on the year. He's getting 32 minutes a game and is at 1.25 points per minute. Also, Orlando has a really high implied team total at about 115. We don't typically see the Orlando Magic that high. So at 8,200, I think he's a pretty good play. And we've seen good games out of him this season, 51, 59. Other than that, he's been a little gross, but it's a great matchup versus the Wizards. So it means it's the best spot he's going to be in all season. So, and versus Memphis, like I said, they suck versus centers, and you saw him drop 59, and I think Jokic is in a pretty good spot tonight as well. So it's kind of between them two for center tonight, in my opinion. You can also always go cheap or just plug in Anthony Davis, but definitely like Vucevic. I definitely like Jokic, but I think Vucevic is the better play. I think he's got more upside tonight, and he's just been a little bit more. I shouldn't say he's been totally consistent, but he's been a little bit more consistent than Jokic. But they're both, they've been kind of the same. But I do love the matchup for Vucevic tonight versus Washington. And then we're going to take a little bit dip down here. We're going to talk about, I guess it should say if Ingram plays, I think he's a fine option, but I don't know if he's going to play yet, so we'll have to see. But I do like Draymond Green at 6,200 here. So told you guys that the price would come up after only being 5,300, but I still think he's a good play today versus New Orleans. D'Angelo Russell is out, so Draymond is really the only guy left here with a name, and the rest is just a bunch of pickup players you'd find at your local Y at this point. His one great game this season came versus New Orleans, where he played 34 minutes and had 16 points, 17 boards, and 10 assists, triple-double, which was good for 59 Draftkings points. Obviously, that's going to be a ceiling game for him, and I wouldn't expect him to replicate that, but he's going to have to take a huge role here, and he should be good for 40-plus fantasy points. Also, New Orleans is 26 versus power forwards this year, and he had a great game in his last time they played him. Everyone's out for the Warriors. It's a high over-under. I think Draymond Green's going to have to be a big piece of this game for the Warriors to stay relevant. So he should be able to get you the rebounds, the steals, the assists, blocks, whatever. He should be able to do everything in this game. So I think 40-plus points is in order, and he's only at 6,200, so I think he's a pretty good play. Then we have his teammate Alec Burks at 4,900. So with D'Angelo Russell being out, like I said, there's a lot of minutes to go around, and Burks should see a nice bump here. He's been about a point per minute this season, and he should see about 30 tonight. And you'd expect him to have his usage, usage bump up with Russell off the court. And like I said, this game's gonna have zero defense, and they're gonna play fast. So I want everyone I can get, especially at these prices. And also the Pelicans are awful versus opposing guards. So Alec Burks, I think he makes some sense as well. But I do like his teammate Kai Bowman a lot better because he is the bare minimum on DraftKings. So if there's a lock on the slate tonight, it's Kai Bowman. He's the bare minimum for some reason with Russell being out. I expect him to get about 35 minutes tonight, and we've seen him produce with big minutes before this year already. I believe versus Charlotte, he had 34 points versus Charlotte, then he had 35 versus Portland, and he was around the mid 4K range those games. And for some reason, he is dirt cheap tonight, so I don't see how he doesn't pay off his salary here. He's probably going to be 100% owned in cash games. Like, seriously, I've seen guys like 99% owned in cash games. So, wouldn't surprise me if he's literally 100% tonight. He's going to pop up in every single optimizer you use. He's going to be, if you do your own projections on my sheet, he's going to grade out as the highest value by far. So, Kai Bowman, I mean, he's probably going to hit 9x tonight very easily. And like I said, there's going to be zero defense. He's going to allow us to fit in all of our studs. And I don't see what can go wrong here. And it's a great matchup versus New Orleans. So, Kai Bowman, lock of the slate, basically. Alexander Walker, I think he's fine as well. I believe he's only... he's only 3,100, so he's only 100 more than Kai Bowman. And just another guy who's going to benefit with injuries. We'll have to see who plays or not for the Pelicans. But as of right now, looking like a pretty good value. And a tough matchup last night versus Miami. He saw 30 minutes and was 6 for 9 from deep and ended up with 38 fantasy points. And look, he's 100 off the bare minimum here, and he should get big minutes and can produce, and there isn't really much of a better matchup versus Golden State in a close spread, high-scoring game with no defense type of game. I can see him draining his threes again. Now, obviously, if he doesn't drain all those threes again, he's not going to get you 38 fantasy points, but, he's a good, he can. It's just his upside of what he can do when he gets big minutes, and, even if he gets his 20-some points, we'll be happy with it. We don't have to get 38 out of him to hit value. We only need, 15 to 20, but I think he's going to do more than that. So Alexander Walker, I think he's a fine play as well. And then one more dirt cheap guy on the Pelicans. We have Melly here at 3K, another bare minimum player. I think I've showed you guys 4 guys that are 3K or 3.1K. So there's a ton of value here. And, like I said, it's very easy to go stars and scrubs tonight. And Melly, he saw 28 minutes last night, ended up with 27 fantasy points. And if he sees similar minutes, I don't see how he doesn't hit 30 versus Golden State. And he's just another fantastic value option. So we have to monitor this news for the Pelicans, but there's potentially a lot of free players on the site. So it's going to be pretty easy to fit in guys like LeBron. So I have not tried to build a lineup yet, but let's just say we plug in LeBron, we plug in Anthony Davis, we play Vucevic or something like that. And then, we can fit in Drew Holiday. That's going to leave us 3,300 left. Maybe we can fit in Kai Bowman. I just want to see if this is possible to fit all these guys in. Maybe we play someone like Melly, Alexander Walker. Yeah, it's possible. Then you have 4,400 left. I don't know who's 4,400, but I don't know. Maybe someone like DeAndre Hunter. I don't know. But I'm just playing around right now. Jordan Poole, maybe. But I'm just playing around right now, but it is easily doable to fit in someone like LeBron, Holiday, Davis, and Vucevic on this slate because there's a bunch of free players. So we'll see how the injuries shake out. But as of right now, that's what I'm liking. Not a big slate, but I do think it's a fun slate because I think there's going to be a lot of high scoring, especially if all these guys are out because stars and scrubs, that could lead to a very high scoring night. But anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to go watch some football. Enjoy that. If you haven't already, check out the NFL videos. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Spreadsheets available in the description below. Updated every single day. And that'll be it. So wish you guys the best of luck tonight and enjoy football, basketball, NASCAR if you're watching.